So welcome to everybody here. And I'm Sarah McCrum. I'm guessing there are some people here who I've never met before. There are definitely some people here who I have met before. And thank you to you for your support and help. I'll just say a very, very little bit about who I am for those of you who don't know me, because I think it's important in the context of what we're going to do. I have been studying and working with energy since, anyway, it's about 33 years now. And I started probably really because my sister died when I was about 30, and it kind of pushed me to ask a whole lot of questions about life that I'd never asked before. I'd previously been living on the assumption that nothing bad would ever happen to me. I think the kind of arrogance or ignorance of youth caught up with me very quickly and pushed me to look for a different understanding of health, especially, and well-being and happiness. And ultimately, as I pursued that, of life. And the way I did it initially was I spent 22 years training with 2 different Chinese masters. And so really what I was doing at that time was learning about energy, universal energy, we called it. We often still call it that. And how initially I was learning how the energy flows through the body and how we improve our health and well-being through the body. And later I really learned about how energy is the underlying structure of everything in life. And through so many years, then teaching, I started teaching back in 1998, even a little bit before that. And I've been teaching ever since then in one way or another. So through all that teaching, I just got more and more and more interested. And of course, every time you teach people about energy, you're actually tuning in some way or other to some kind of energy field. So I've been doing it for a very, very long time. What I have not been doing is things like I'm going to do today. So I don't want to set myself up here as some kind of psychic or some kind of prophet or anything like that. This is not, this is what's going to happen in the future. I think it's really important to be clear about that, because people often really, they want to know what's going to happen. We all, we can be very attracted to things that make us feel a bit more secure about the future, especially in a world that doesn't feel very secure. But I don't think we can do that. So what I want to do is really share with you what I'm tuning into in a way where you're able to tune into the energy of 2022 yourself and find for yourself what that energy is. It's much more useful to share the skill. I will share the information as well that I'm able to tune into, because it is different. It's a really big shift for us from what we've been used to. And my sense, and I've already had to start to change the way I'm doing things to meet this energy. So I thought that that's why it would be so helpful to share it, because it's very frustrating if you carry on doing things the way that you're used to and they feel kind of useless, disempowered, and it's simply because of this energy thing. So that's why I wanted to do this. And so we're going to do it in a very relaxed way, and I'm going to encourage you to be a part of the energy field that I'm sharing with you, so that you receive your own information. You might receive your own interpretation. My experience is the core, the essence of it will probably be shared very similarly. That's what I've generally found with energy, that we all get the essence when we tune into a particular field, but we each experience it in a way that is absolutely appropriate for us. So it's not what's appropriate for me might not be appropriate for you, but the essence of the energy is the same. And that's what's rather beautiful about working this way. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that before we get started? If you have questions at any point, the easiest thing to do is to raise your hand using the reactions tab. because I can see that immediately. If you wave at me or something, I probably won't see you. All right. So before we start that, I'm going to play a little recording. This is partly to help us tune in a little bit and also come together into a field which is in some way about tuning in not only to the present, but also to the potentiality of the present. I was asked last year to make a recording which was about facing towards 2030. It was made for an event that was called, what was it called? It was about unity, the world's unity. It was something, a World Day of Unity or something like that. I can't remember what it was called now. Anyhow, it was about unity, and it was called, I called it Towards 2030. Some of you might have seen it before. And it's really looking at a time in 2030 where we have listened to the energy and we have followed the steps that are available to us. We're tuned in rather than tuned out. We're connected rather than distracted. And this is what becomes possible for us by doing that. So this session today is a contribution towards that journey towards 2030.
Let's take a look into the year 2030. A time when we can see the results of so many people making positive change. Let's feel right now what it's like to know peace on our planet. Let's see what it looks like when Earth is free to restore her natural beauty. Let's listen to the sounds of people who are living in harmony with each other and with nature. Let's sense the deep love for life that has created this change. The people who have joined together to do good for the world. The individuals who had the courage and determination to do what they knew was right. The organizations that change direction for the sake of our mutual well-being. The leaders who encouraged us to trust ourselves and our inner knowing. The spirits who whispered in our hearts, showing us the way when we couldn't see it clearly. These are the expressions of love that unite us and give us power to move forward, creating the world we long to live in. Let's bring that world into the present moment and live it today and tomorrow and the next day and every day on the path to 2030 and beyond.
So let's tune into the energy of 2022. The reason why I didn't do this at the beginning of the year is because I've tended always to tune into the Chinese years. Because I trained so long with Chinese masters, that system has always made a lot of sense to me. I'm not an astrologer, so I haven't really connected with the astrological system, which some of you may do. And Friday, the 4th of February, is the beginning of the Chinese have the solar year and the lunar year. So Chinese New Year, as we know it, was earlier in the week, but the 4th of February is the kind of first day of the Chinese New Year, when they talk about it's the year of the water tiger. Now, there's a tiny little bit of kind of tiger stuff that I might talk about, but that's not from deep knowledge of the Chinese system. I've always just had other people to advise me on that. This is more what I'm seeing myself. But that's why it's come in February rather than January. I think there's been a very distinct shift that's happening. So let's just take a moment together and tune into the energy, the field, if you like, of this year that we are now in, 2022. We're tuning into the nature of the energy, or the essence of it, in such a way that we can experience it and get to know it, and also see how that might affect us, how we might be able to take action and live our lives beneficially to us and to others. So it's tuning in a way that's helpful and relevant, and especially in relation to where we are in the world, what's going on in the world, what's going on in our own lives and in our own responses to what's going on in the world, so that we are able to make a purposeful, meaningful contribution from wherever each one of you is, because we're all in different places here. So the thing that really started all of this off for me was that the minute I start to look into this energy, what I find is extremely powerful is an ability to see into the energy, or to see into the energy of anything with radical honesty. And I'm going to talk quite a lot about this way of seeing, because this is seems to me to be the primary energy of the year that unlocks so much of the power and the potential of it. This is a very different kind of seeing from observing. We're often used to observing things where we take a perspective, we're looking from above it, we broaden our perspective so that we can see more. And that's often a very good strategy if you're, for example, feeling emotional or overwhelmed or disturbed by things, is to take a bigger perspective by observing. This is a very different kind of seeing. In order to do it, you need to get yourself into a very relaxed, deep state. So it's more of a dropping down seeing rather than a rising up seeing. And what happens is you drop into this way of seeing, and as I speak about it, you will find yourself gradually doing it, is that you start to see into something rather than look at it. You're seeing into the essence of it rather than seeing the features of it. And the more you go, the more of that essence you see and sense. It's really becomes not so much a seeing for many of us. Some of you will be very visual, but many of us are not so visual in our inner knowing. But it's like you are knowing from the inside the energy of whatever it is that you're looking at. And you know it so intimately that you experience the power and the potential of that energy. People talk a lot about this year being a year of disclosure, and that we're going to learn a lot more about events that have been going on in the world probably for a long time. my sense is that the real energy of the year is not so much about disclosure. That's what it will appear to be on the outside. Because when you see more deeply into the essence of things, there is a kind of natural disclosure that happens. It discloses itself, let's say. But that is very different from what we think of disclosure as revealing the dirty secrets of the world, which is really what's being meant most of the time. That will appear to be the noise on the surface, and you have the opportunity to get very caught up in the noise on the surface. That will be for sure. So we can expect a lot of noise. But the opportunity really is to see into the essence. And what's really interesting here is that it's not seeing into the roots of the problems. It's seeing into the roots of the potential. And the word that comes to me over and over again is potentiality. I think that's an important word because it's not a fixed potential. It's a very dynamic potential. Potentiality contains the potential for potential, if you see what I mean. So in seeing the potential, you open up more potential, and then you need to see into the essence of that, which opens up more potential. Usually when we see the potential of something, we see it once and the potential is revealed. And it may change a little bit as you go through it, because things adjust themselves, the energy adjusts itself as you go along. This is a very different feeling. It would be tempting to see deeply once and say, oh, I know that now, I know what I need to do, because that's the way we've done things in the past. We get an insight and then we go and rearrange our life around the insight and experience the ripple effect of that insight, and probably wait for quite a long time until we get another insight. There's an invitation here to keep seeing. What happens when we see the essence of anything, a person, a situation, it could be a relationship, it could be a business, it could be something very close to you, something that you're a part of, it could be something very external to you, an organization, a system that operates on the planet. People talk a lot today, you could talk about climate or the financial system or our system of governance or politics or any of the things that are very up in the air at the moment. Any of those things you can see in this way if you choose to do the dropping in work that is necessary to be able to see with this level of clarity. What's important to understand is fundamentally a principle of consciousness is that when we even observe something in consciousness, it changes. So human observation changes the nature of life. It actually changes what happens in life. It changes the energy instantly, simply by the pure act of observation. And that is a really interesting thing, because the change that happens when you observe something, and even more powerful when you see it in the way that I'm talking about, is an evolution. So it's an improvement, it's an advancement on wherever it is at the moment. I've taught people a lot how to observe consciously. And when I say consciously, that means without any emotion and without any stories. It's observing with clarity. It's just seeing what's going on without any of the drama that we normally associate with things. Now what I'm talking about is seeing the essence of what's going on. The more you come into the essence, the more you can't experience any emotion, any drama, any personal story, although you may be personally in the story of what's going on, but it doesn't attach to you. It becomes a clarity and a deep inner knowing of the essence of the potentiality of the situation. the roots of a problem will be revealed, but they will not need to be addressed, because what you are addressing is the potentiality, which is an advanced or evolved version of what it is that you're seeing. And what happens in that moment of seeing is that there's a dynamic, it's not really a release of power, maybe I could call it a liberation of power that happens simultaneously as you see the essence. That is, it is astounding. I actually used the right words. I said the astoundingly dynamic energy of 2022. It's like, wow, because the power that is liberated in that moment of seeing the essence is a very different power than I think we have been used to experiencing and talking about and looking for and searching and training ourselves to become stronger in. So I'm going to describe the power that is liberated in this act of seeing. We are used to a kind of power that has a ripple effect. So you do something and it impacts people in this emanating outwards kind of way. Now that is clearly something that's always happening. As I speak, even now, I know that there is a ripple effect and you'll go away and reflect on it. It may change things in you as I'm speaking, because there's an activation going on as I speak of this energy. So we all become more tuned into it. And we've tended to build our businesses, especially around this ripple effect. What's extremely interesting in this is the effect to me is more like a liftoff effect. It's the energy of it is like this, not like this. And so it's like in that moment of seeing, it's almost vertical. Like in our 3D world, I can only show it as vertical, but actually it's multi-dimensional. So it's not just vertical, but it's like all these different layers are changed instantaneously. And so what ensues is an instantaneous change. And what I mean by that is that things change. You will become aware that things have changed outside of you, or things that are connected with whatever it is that you're looking at have changed simply by virtue of you having looked at it. Now, I'm not saying that this wasn't happening before. What I'm recognizing is that it's been very hard for us to have that skill and to experience that. We might have experienced it at the level of, oh, yes, we kind of know this. People talk about quantum. I was with some friends yesterday, and one of them was talking about quantum energy. And that's not a word that I've used very much, but I think that it's sometimes used to describe this kind of thing. What's significant for me about this is that it is becoming available. It feels to me like if we learn how to do this year, it is a skill that will stay with us for life. So the opportunity in this year is to learn a new skill of a new inner technology that then becomes a fundamental skill of being human. And I'll show you in a little while why that is so significant. In the meantime, so until we get there, yes, if we can get this sense of this vertical shift, which is immediate, I saw it almost like, it's a strange image, but a Harrier jump jet. If you think about it, we're just so used to airplanes taking off in a kind of lateral way with a little bit of uplift. We just think that's how an airplane takes off. But when you see a jump jet and it just kind of goes up into the air, it almost defies our sense of what flight is. So it's that kind of energy. It defies the way that we think power and energy unfolds in our world and how we're really used to organizing ourselves around it. And when you feel that happen, it is so dynamic, it's almost scary, there is something that might shy away from that level of power. The protection comes if you're genuinely, sincerely looking to see the essence. If you can ensure that you're in a deeper space, so you're not reacting emotionally to things. You won't experience it if you're emotional anyway. So you're protected from that perspective. If you're emotional, life will continue as normal. So we have to get to a place that is beneath that, where the energy is very neutral. And then if you're in a neutral energy, you're safe because you're not in a reactive state. If you see the essence, it's like seeing a degree of truth. I won't say the truth. I don't think there's ever the truth, because there's more. What don't we know that we can see? But you're seeing a degree of truth that protects you, because you're seeing deeper into life than you were formerly. And that is a very beautiful and powerful thing to do. But yes, the power that's available can be a bit scary because it's such a different pattern and it feels so dynamic. You can feel like, oh, I'm not enough to be able to live with that. And what happens when you have that moment of seeing, and you don't need to be in this all the time, but it's a skill we can develop. What happens when you have that moment is that a whole lot of things change around you and things become possible. And what you might experience is that you have an idea that feels like, wow, I really want to do this, but it's an idea that's very elevated from where you were before. And the temptation then is to say, I can't, I don't think I'm ready, I'm not good enough, how will I do this? All that waiting and procrastinating is not the way to respond in this energy. In this energy, you see the thing that needs to be done because it's a powerful step for you to do it. You don't think, am I capable of it or not? You just ask really open, useful questions. Who do I need? What do I need to do? And you do it very quickly and simply and without any drama at all. And it seems like that kind of action is very effective. And the slower kind of building up action, the build up will come through moments of more and more moments like this, rather than building something slowly over time. So of course we in a business, you're always building your business. But the key moments are these moments of seeing, where everything will expand very, very quickly, but in a different pattern. Another thing that I saw that feels really significant, I think the questions we've asked ourselves, especially in business, or anyone who is a game changer, who is purpose-centered, is how can I have more impact? How can I have more influence? And we've tended to look to expand our reach. The invitation here is to expand your power, not your reach. The reach will come from the power, not from the extension, if you see what I mean. So through these moments of seeing the essence, there's such an expansion of power. The actions that you take as a consequence are so direct and simple and clean. And I had an example of this last week where after a moment of this kind of seeing, I wanted to organize a meeting, which I simply wouldn't have even thought about before. And there were specific people I wanted who were extremely busy people who usually it would have taken me quite a lot of time to even probably feel I could invite those people to a meeting and get in touch with them and, fiddling around with calendars. And even someone who I knew was not going to be able to meet for 6 weeks or so had one slot in her calendar at that time. It was really interesting. The whole thing came together in a day. And anyone who's used to organizing meetings for several busy, successful people will know that that's usually not very easy. So it was a nice example of how simple that was. Okay. So let's think for a moment or two about how we can apply this in some different areas of our life. If you think about health, if you have health problems, then you can find a place, exactly the place that I've been describing, to actually see deeply into the essence of the potentiality of your health. Now, you don't do that by looking for the potential, and you don't do it by looking at the problem. You simply do it by looking at your health, by seeing into the essence of your health. And if you can do that without the what's wrong with me, why is this happening to me, when am I going to get better, how am I going to get better, those are all questions that come not from potentiality, and they come from not seeing. Those are questions that come from, I don't know what on earth's going on with me, but I don't like it. I just want it all to go away. If you want to see clearly, you actually have to look at what's there. So it's the opposite of making it go away. It's an honest, defenseless, pretenseless seeing your situation. And if you can do that, you will be surprised by what you see. Now, you may need to do this many times because health is very dynamic, and things can change as a result of your seeing. And then you'll have another time where you need to see with this kind of clarity, and then things will change. But there is most clearly a route that in here that will greatly aid your healing. And I have to say, one of the difficult things around health is that health is so much connected with emotions. Our health is so much influenced by our emotions. Our ill health is so much caused by or associated with our emotions that this might not be an easy thing to do, but I believe that it's a worthwhile thing to do. And you could think about doing it if you're part of a community like my community, for example, where there are lots of other people all learning these kinds of things. You could get together in groups, because if you support each other in a group, you'll be able to help each person to see themselves more clearly just by supporting this energy field of clear seeing the essence. Definitely with health, I think that will make it a lot easier. With relationships, there's a very interesting potential here that I discovered a few days ago in conversation with somebody, and I realized that I felt myself. There is a potential to see the other person in your relationship with a kind of intimacy. Again, seeing the essence. If you see the essence of that person and they see the essence of you, there's a way in which your essences touch each other that is, again, so dynamic. It's also a little bit scary because to me, it's that knowing of life in relationship with another person that we long for our whole life, but we tell so many stories about ourselves and about the person and about our relationship and about our circumstances and everything else, that we hold ourselves apart from that meeting. And yet our soul longs to meet other souls in human form and to know them deeply, instantaneously. The soul doesn't need all this kind of play that we tend to need in relationship. And if you can face your partner, to me, it's most obvious in a partner relationship, but of course, the potential is available in any relationship. Even if you can see the essence of it and the other person can't, that will be very powerful. But the really beautiful possibility is that two people can do this and know each other in a way that they haven't known each other before. This is evolution. So those of you who maybe already have a very, very close relationship, this is not a moment to say, oh, I know that, I have that already. This is a moment to say, what I know is beautiful. There's an invitation here for something more, something that I haven't known before. Every year, every day carries that potential, that evolutionary potential for us to know something that we haven't known before. So I'm not saying anything radical here, but we tend to want to get ourselves to a good place and then stay there and hold it for as long as we can until it begins, the edge goes off it, and then get ourselves into a good place again. And that holds us in a comfort zone sometimes where we think, well, yeah, it's pretty good, I'm okay. That's not the opportunity of this year. The opportunity that lies in this year, which gives us this lifelong ability to do that, becomes the foundation of our relationship in the future, is to go to this extra place. So that's something to explore. It's a kind of meeting point between two people that has extraordinarily dynamic potential within it. If we look at business and projects or anywhere where action is involved, something that I saw, I talked about it not being this ripple effect that we're used to. It's more like a kind of chain reaction that I would call an orchestrated chain reaction, and you are not the orchestrator. If you think of an orchestra, you have all these different instruments, and every single one of them, sometimes groups of instruments, are doing something different. They're playing a different tune. If you listen to the bass, the double bass, for example, and you listen to the flute or the oboe, you wouldn't even know, if you listen to them separately, that they're part of the same piece of music. What they play is so radically different that it's quite phenomenal when you think how many instruments there are in an orchestra, that what gets created out of that is a coherent experience, a musical story unfolding. This is like an orchestrated chain reaction. So from that very dynamic moment of change, it's as if the whole thing that happens around the moment happens in concert, orchestrated, like it's all happening at the same time, and it's happening in a beautiful way. Again, it feels like we've had the language for this, but I don't feel that we've had the energetic language for it. I think we've had the words and we've had the intention and the expectation. I don't feel, maybe some people have, I don't feel in my own life that I've experienced this in the way that I'm describing before. So it feels to me like some of the things we've learned about are becoming possible in ways that perhaps were inaccessible for us before. So what happens in that seeing the essence is that you experience an activation of that orchestrated chain reaction. It's almost like an initiation into a new version of your life that happens all simultaneously. Of course, the ripple effect will happen from there, but we will be less concerned with the ripple effect. We won't be trying to count that. We will be counting the, or not really counting, but experiencing this uplift, this instant expansion will be more interesting to us, and the actions that need to happen as a result, which is really, so it's like a concentrating of power. It's a concentrating of the potentiality of life rather than a spreading of it. I think what's really important about this, and what I find so intriguing, is that developing this skill changes the way that we make decisions. If you think about it, we're used to making decisions that have consequences, and then we make another decision that has consequences, and we go on this chain of decision making. As a society, especially if you're in a democratic society, we have all these skills that we're supposed to develop and use. We may not use them very well, of discussion and informing ourselves and debating and influencing and lobbying and different ways that we engage with the democratic process to influence power. But what's happening here is the power and the influence is immediate. And it's happening on all levels at the same time. And that becomes much more tangible. So the decision is actually made in the moment of seeing the essence. It's not made through a cognitive process. That means that an individual who is not deeply connected with the power systems, not an expert lobbyer or an NGO or a large corporation that can put your advertising dollars into the media, or all the systems by which we influence power now, or somebody who's really willing to go and talk to your local member of parliament or whatever your local system is. It means that somebody who is willing to look directly influences decisions that are made in a new way. And what I see happening as we develop this skill is that there's a real distributed democracy, people power, that emerges on a completely different level from what we've known. And that the organizations and systems that respond slowly through debate and discussion and all the other systems of governance and decision-making are actually the ones that will lose power during this year, because they're not able to respond to the dynamic of the energy. They are looking in the old way at how to influence in the old way. They haven't learned, and are very unlikely to learn, mostly, I would say, the skill of influencing in the new way. And the beautiful thing about this is that if you're seeing the essence, you are coming from a place that is naturally aligned with nature and aligned with life. So whatever emerges is naturally good. It is, the goodness is built in. And of course, life will change as a result of more people being able to see things with this level of clarity. And then there will be more things for us to see. And more things for us to see. So as we hone our skill, we become better and better contributors to the true democracy on this planet, coming from a place of internal sovereignty, sovereignty unto life, sovereignty to your soul, sovereignty to the innate nature of your being. We come from a place of inner liberation. You can't see in this way if you're trapped in the kind of cloud of your own emotion. So cultivating the skills of neutrality and relaxation and all the other things that I teach people all the time, and you can learn in various different places, are very important in order to be able to use this skill. But what I see is the new politics, if you like, the new power systems arise from this year. Now, if we look on the surface, we may not be able to see that. We may have to look for the signs if we want to look at what's happening on the surface, because the surface could be very disrupted and very uncomfortable this year. So it's useful to be able to see those little signs that there's good stuff happening, because those are the things that we hold on to in the difficult moments and that keep us on the path of contributing to a better future for humanity, because that's what we do here. We're not here to destroy or to hurt people or to any of those things. We do them along the way, but we're here to contribute to the betterment of this place, this planet that we are living on at the moment, and the communities that are living on it, animals and plants and humans and rocks and everything else that's here. So a lot of people will not be able to see what's going on. And if you spend a lot of time tuning into the surface eruptions of what's going on, it could continue to be very disturbing. And that's the reason why I wanted to share this, so that you have another way of seeing things that gives you peace and gives you clarity. And actually the way that we approach this is with humility and openness and curiosity. and asking good questions. The questions we ask will determine what we see, and the responses, what's activated or initiated as a result of what we see. So, for example, if you're looking to just see something on the surface, you're only curious about the surface, that's all you'll see. If your curiosity and your questions are taking you into a deep essence, that's what you'll see, and that's where the change will happen. It will change in the essence. This is a very personal power. Nobody is too small. This is genuinely, if you have the humility to do this, to not think you have the answers already. I know what's going on in the world. I've watched this person and listened to this person, and I know the truth. Like, who in the world at the moment doesn't know the truth about everything? And that's why there's so much fighting. So it takes humility to say, I don't know, actually. I've learned all of this, and I understand some things, and I can see some things that are going on, but it's only when I look into the essence that I know more what's going on. And then you won't join the fight. Something else will be happening altogether inside you. It's an interesting thing, you know, when we look at fractals, because there's a sort of fractal nature to this. Usually when we look at a fractal, we look at a fractal pattern. You can see these on YouTube, and then you kind of dive into it, and you see the same pattern repeating, and then you dive into it. It's like you're going into smaller and smaller and smaller fractals inside the fractal. This is rather like the opposite. It's like we start in that tiniest place we can go to, that which is the essence, and it's like all the bigger fractals of it, everything gets affected at the same time. Of course, fractals are working, they're working both ways, and that it's all simultaneous, but we tend to be used to the view of looking in and in and in and in and in. To me, this is like the view of, okay, let's look in, and the kind of fractal explosion is happening all around that. So it's, if you see the essence, you see the whole. Really, that's what's going on. See the essence, see the whole at the same time. So the changes that happen are shift changes. That's pretty obvious. Then there are incremental changes that come always from shift changes, but the shift changes are the interesting changes in this year. There's a little bit of tiger stuff that I noticed when I was tuning in that seemed kind of important. I got this image of a tiger maybe lying on the branch of a tree. So the moment when a tiger pounces is that kind of alertness of action. There's no hesitation in there. The tiger can't afford to sit around and think, oh, is this going to be all right or not? It just knows with its whole being when the time is to pounce on something. But what I was interested in was this sense. And look, if I'm mashing up the Chinese understanding of Chinese energy, I'm just using it as an image. So please don't hold me up on that one, because I'm not trying to be a Chinese teacher here or something. But I just had this sense of a kind of alert relaxation, like totally relaxed. It was almost like the tiger, even with its eyes closed, is totally relaxed. But if anything comes into its field that could be a threat, so this is a tiger after it's eaten, it's not hungry, it's not looking for something to jump on, but it's got this kind of alertness in its relaxation. It's not a sleepy energy. It's a kind of like one eye could just open and see, could check. I feel like that kind of position is very valuable this year. We're not kind of dropping into so relaxed that we're not aware of anything. It's a relaxation is very awake and very conscious. That will emerge as we practice during the year. The other thing that is really important to understand, and the reason why the emphasis is so strongly on this year, is because the consequences of this year are contained within the year. This kind of dynamic uplift of power, it means that the changes that happen this year, in a way they're contained here. The consequences will be unfolding for a long time. it's a funny thing to say, but it's important to say it. I think I know why I need to say it. It's because usually we say, okay, I'll do this action now, and then maybe next year this is what will happen. We're always looking for, how do we plan for the future? How do I set things up now so that the future will happen in a certain way? We do that in business all the time. People make 1-year plans and 5-year plans and all of this kind of thing. This is different from that. This is, the consequences are right here and now. And that's what we need to concentrate on. So it brings us very much into the present, and not to think so much about, it's not even for me the question to ask, where do I want to be in a year's time or 5 years' time? The question for me is, well, actually I'm exploring questions all the time, but what's a truly valuable thing that I can do right now that contributes to the whole? That is a more interesting question to ask, and a question you can ask each day, than what do I need to do right now to make sure that this happens? And if we would go back to the recording at the beginning, it was talking about things like listening. I think it said something like, listen to the sounds of the people who are living in harmony with nature. What that means is listen into the energy of living in harmony with nature. It wasn't go and sit in on a conversation with an Aboriginal person or something. Like, you might do that, but it wasn't that kind of instruction. It wasn't listen to their conversation. It was playing all the time with our different senses and how we use our senses to sense into this much deeper experience of what's possible. So asking yourself what's valuable, what you can valuably contribute, is, I think, much more interesting. And we can come up with much better questions as well, I'm sure, because the questions will be important. Much more interesting than asking what's important for me to do today, which I've often asked. What's important? What's urgent? We're often taught that in business. What's valuable? Because that tunes you in with value, tunes you in with your own value, it tunes you in with the value of life. And it enables you to take actions that activate the value of life within the whole system. What I see as a consequence of this is that this year is the year that an innate system of natural governance on this planet can be installed. It may take longer for us to see it, but the installation happens this year. Governance, organization, system design, business design that is in alignment with nature and in alignment with life, and enables us as human beings in all our different and varied forms to thrive and to live on this planet together in a way that allows for our diversity and allows for our creativity, but is fundamentally based on the principles of love and abundance and generosity and nature, our true nature, the essence of who we are. It's time for us to see that and create space for that to happen. This will not happen through human action alone. There is, without question, a great deal of activation of multidimensional energies, however you want to look at that, supporting this transformation and these skills that I've been sharing in this talk. So we're not alone in this. We are deeply, broadly, widely, highly supported, which makes it much easier for us. But it really makes a difference when we show up for that, rather than showing up for an inferior version of life in the future. I think that that's what I have to say for now. I would be very happy to answer questions and to have a little bit of a discussion around this. I allowed 90 minutes for this session. So let's, if you've got something to say or to ask or to share, then please click the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer, and click raise hand. And then it's easy for me to see. Ananda.
Hi there, it's Ariane. Hi. Sorry, I haven't changed my iPad name there. Hi. I was really called to join this meeting. I was very excited, Sarah, when you emailed that. I felt that was just, the energy was really powerful. So I wanted to share that I really liked many things that you shared or said today. One is the liberation of power. So it's not necessarily a shift of power, but a liberation of power. And I feel that you said then as well that that creates an instant expansion of some sort if we make choices or are still or relaxed and make choices. But also what I find powerful that just really applies to me today is this aspect of you saying, you know, look at the essence. And one thing that I wanted to offer was also that I'm dealing with my family and my brother, and these last couple of days we communicating around the subject of family inheritance. And I was really able to step forward without emotion and feel really this new opportunity and possibility and the transformation of essence in our family. But what I was going to say is this Plato's cave thing. You know, in order for us to see the essence, many of us are including myself, I was in this Plato's caves, and people behind me, in this case, my brother, casting shadows to the wall in front of me. And, you know, and then I call it then I'm caught in the dance of somebody else. And so all we need to do is just either say, I don't do this dance, or I don't want to do this dance, or simply step out of this cave into the light, because then you get to see the sun yourself or the flowers or a different perspective, so to speak, that needs to really happen internally. Otherwise, I'm just sucked into the darkness or fear of another being's perspective. And I am frozen. I can't really make a choice or ask a question. I'm enveloped in that fog of fear of a corporation or of my own ego, so to speak. And so really love this coming together and putting a little bit more emphasis on this, as this is so powerful for this year, to free ourselves from these chains of the past, and not like going with, in the past I was treated this way by my family or by my partner, not going there, but really looking at what do I want? What do I really want to live? And putting our awareness on a solution or a way of being or life or health or partnership that you do want rather than you don't want. It's a little tricky in the moment, I think, when somebody casts shadows, or you're, you know, to have the courage to say no, and really begin to embody maybe first a calmness or a space, or I'm actually in my power, or I actually have power here, even though if it looks completely not like it.
So yes, and what I really want to draw attention to is that what I'm sharing is in here is that if you can see the essence of the situation, for example, with your brother, with this kind of clarity that I'm talking about, you don't need to start with what you want. It's a genuine shift. Like that has worked very well in the past, but here, first of all, in that moment, you see the potentiality. And so what you want emerges out of that really naturally. So we can actually start in a different place. Do you see what I mean? And then that opens up so much of the rest. So yes, it's interesting. Thank you for sharing that, because it helps me to see also things that I need to teach for this year to update in a way, because what I was teaching before was was really working. With this edition, it kind of supercharges it. But we need to learn the skills of how to do that, because what you're saying is it's not easy to get into that place when you're kind of embedded in other people's energy fields and reacting from there. So
yeah, and then I mean, said it, you can always ask for support. I was lucky now to have this partner that I can immediately talk to, and he said to me this morning, look, before we write an email back, just let's look at the whole essence of the picture.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's the words.
Yeah,
the instructions are coming through, and they will come through to all of us in different ways, the same kind of instruction. And then we need to see, okay, yes, this is really an opportunity to look at the essence of the picture. From there, it's very freeing, it's very liberating for you as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Ariane.
very grateful. Thank you very much. And I thought it was very good the way you share. It's not easy to describe this distinction you are describing today, but I can tell, I can feel it's already mirror imaging in my life. So I'm very grateful that you have the ability to share with us. So thank you.
Thank you. Karen.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
So inspiring. Thank you, Sarah. I'm really, I just feel very full of the beauty of what you've shared as it's landing in me, obviously. And one thing that's really come forward for me is marketing, because you talked about, when you're talking about essence, you talked about health, relationships, and business. And then my focus went to marketing, because I've often had a question around that, because there's so much around marketing, and now we get a lot around ethical marketing, but I've always felt there's another way. So when you talk about essence, what comes to me is about how can each one of us filter the essence that we are able to grasp in any moment through our work, through our creations. And, really, so for me, it's like a focus on quality, on beauty, on vibration. And then letting that, as we kind of pop that into the world in whatever way that might be, that might just be showing it a neighbor. But there's something about the energy then doing the work. Yeah. It's like the ad is in the energy with which I put it out. So almost like if I send it out, also if I send an email, what energy do I send that out with? Yeah. So that to me, it just opens up a whole other level of possibility around marketing somehow that I find really
interesting, Karen, because in many ways, my quest for deeper kind of understanding that triggered all this came from marketing questions. Mm-hmm. I had this feeling that things that I want to do, I am relaunching my book in March, Love Money, Money Loves You. And I sent out all these emails, as I was asked to do by my book launch manager. I chose a very conscious book launch manager. She's amazing. And I kind of was doing the things that you're supposed to do. And because of something in the way my emails were set up, practically all of them went to spam. And so I got virtually no response, which is unusual. I usually get, I know there are many people who are trying to get into this session, and we had this limit of 100 people, which is because my Zoom accounts got fused together somehow. And anyhow, it's kind of got messy. So, and the question when you do a book launch is, how do I reach as many people and get as many people to buy my book? Really is what it is. And I'm like troubled by this all the time, because it doesn't, although of course, yes, I want to share the message of my book, because I feel that it's really relevant to where we are today. And I feel it's needed more than it has been at any time since I wrote it. But that question, how do I share my book with as many people as possible, just doesn't feel like the right question anymore. And so I was really troubled by this, because it's obviously what I should be doing, but I don't want to ask the question. And then it feels like I'm defeating my own business. And I started to ask, because the other thing I realized that came at the same time is that if I do it the way that I'm was planning to do it, which is the way we did it in the past. It's the way that works. I will just be on Zoom. I'm already on Zoom a lot of the day. I'll be on Zoom all day and all night. It's like, it's never ending. And I didn't want that. And so I started to ask what would be, I don't know exactly what the question was now, but it was kind of like, what would be the most impactful thing I could do in terms of sharing the message about money and liberation, really, which I think is what I'm really about. How do we liberate our spirit so we're free to live in this world and not in those shadows that Ariana was describing? And that made me look at things really differently. And then from there, I started to, my husband Nico said, oh, Sarah, can you look at the year, you know, the energy of the year? And out of all of these things, so it's actually a marketing challenge that pushed me. And it's like, it's scary in a way, because if I say, well, the things I would normally do are not the right things to do, I need to be very on the ball, very awake to, so what is this year's, let's not put it in terms of years, because it's not just about years, but the Chinese did have a knack of describing certain kinds of shifts and changes that were defined by time. But what is really, what's a powerful, valuable, not just powerful, but valuable thing to do? If we have access to more power, then we have to ask questions about value. What's a valuable contribution? And so it changes the questions that we ask around our marketing, which will then change the actions that we take. And yeah, I'm so happy that you brought that up. I think that it's really important. The thing that I really notice is how the old way just feels so disempowered at the moment. I can hardly believe it. And this webinar, I'm really curious how many people actually tried to come, because I just wrote this email really quickly. I didn't set up anything, like normally I have the 24-hour reminder and the 1-hour reminder emails and things like that. But it was just like, here it is. Here's what to do if you want to join it. I don't care. It's like anyone who comes, anyone who doesn't come, doesn't come. We solve the problems as we go along. That feels much more in the spirit of this year. I felt so clear about doing it, and there's no hesitation. So the results are yet to be seen. We don't know how it's all going to work, but when I feel that strength and power of energy, I can't ignore it. I have to join the experiment, so to speak, and figure out what it is. Thanks, Karen. Phyllis.
Yes, I'm unmuting myself. I don't have my camera on.
That's okay.
Sarah, I'll try to tone it down here. Phenomenal. And in one moment, each sentence that you went, it was like, I had another voice going, mine, and it was integrating my 81 years of insight. And it just flowed almost to the point of distraction. So I was balancing my voice and your voice. And after we hang up, I'm going for food and I'm coming back and I'm writing it. So I have 2 questions.
Yep.
I don't want to be presumptuous, but once I've written it, would it be okay if I sent it to you?
Absolutely. I'd love to see it.
Okay. So I'll find out what, and then will there be a replay? And I asked for this for one reason. I want to write it, and I'm just going to let it flow today because it's there. And then if I listen to the replay, I could write again from that, because I was going sentence for sentence, and then I could look at what comes out in both of them.
Yes, I will share. It's actually on YouTube already, because we're live streaming. But what I want to do is produce a clean version of it without the interruption at the beginning, just absolutely clean all the way through, because I think that that's actually more valuable at this point than the pure live stream. So we'll get that done today, I'm sure. And I will share that. I'll put that up on YouTube so that it's something that people can also share with other people. Okay.
Okay. And an email to send to you, or maybe you want to give that publicly?
Yeah, no, send it to me, sarah@sarahmccrum.com. Anyhow, all my emails come there. So sarah@sarahmccrum.com. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. And thank you so much. Thank you. And I want others to have a chance to share. So, but bless you.
Yeah, I'm delighted that
magnificent. Beyond is like pulling my 81 years together into one moment. Seriously.
Oh, how beautiful.
Oh,
Thank you for sharing that. I can't wait to see it.
okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Christine.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Thank you so much for, just the way you expressed it, because I felt it. And it's happening, but just by the way you put it together in words that, yeah, that's right. Yes, more like that. There's something in what you're saying. I know you're doing it more intuitively, but I'm wondering if you can go back and if you can kind of explain a little bit more. You said this year, we kind of developing a slightly change in the way we make decisions. And you said we used to make decisions that has consequence. I just want, if you can indicate, like more explain it.
Sure. Because actually, I think this is the most interesting bit of the whole thing. And of course, decisions have consequences. Anything has consequences. So I'm not saying not that. Let's have a look at how we used to make decisions, first of all. And look, we do have to try this out. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not an oracle. I'm just sharing the energy that I'm experiencing. But I've been in this world for so long that I trust what I experience in this way. So we're used to making decisions. We look at an outcome that we want to create. And then we think about, we make a decision, I want that to happen in my life. And then we take kind of actions towards that outcome that we want to create. And sometimes we have to adjust the outcome, sometimes we have to adjust the actions. At a political level, it's a little bit more complicated because technically speaking, politicians are supposed to represent people. So there are notionally ways of gathering information, but mostly that information now comes from large organizations that have the money and power to influence the politicians. So it's not so much the people. There are debates and discussions and political systems, there are debates in the upper and lower houses of different parliaments, and a whole lot of activity that goes on around making decisions that we're all used to. And we have small versions in our own life, and there's a big expanded version. Corporations and companies, every company is making decisions all the time. What the power of this is that I saw is that in this clarity of seeing the essence of a situation. So let's say it's a situation that's going on in the world at the moment. Maybe it's to do with, you could look at the truckers' convoy in Canada, for example. That's a situation that's happening in Canada. We can all see what's in the news, or we can see what's not in the news. We can see what different media outlets share. We can see how the parliament and the different politicians respond to it, because that's on YouTube. But what happens if we look into the essence of that? What's actually, what's the deeper truth in there? And I haven't done this because that's not something that, it's not, I'm interested in it, but it's not so close to my world. But if I was in the position of a politician in Canada, and I knew the things that I'm talking about here now, I would look into the essence of that situation. And in the moment of seeing with that kind of clarity, it's like everything arranges itself. It orchestrates itself instantly into greater coherence, so that even if you see in there, there will be contrary vibes, so to speak. There will be people there for really sincere good purposes. There will be disruptors there, because you always get that. Even if you see that, greater coherence will come into the system immediately. So in many ways, you don't then need to go and make a decision about what you have to do, because you've already done it by looking, by seeing. It's not looking, it's seeing that does it. So the decision and the greater coherence that results from that is more and greater than we generally can manage from our own, I want this outcome position. And you can see that in politics, because you could have a member of the Canadian Parliament who wants this outcome to happen, wants them all to go away and to just stop disturbing things, and somebody else who wants them to win the day and change the decisions that are being made in Canada. We have both of those. The one who sees clearly there'll be a power and a coherence and a change that happens as a result of that, which which will actually have consequences. But the point is, you're not making the decision for the consequences. You're seeing the essence, and change happens, is activated in that act of seeing, with good, naturally good consequences that are beyond the outcomes that we can at a human level orchestrate for ourselves.
Thank you. It's remind me of you know, there's an artist about it's a coherence of the sense when somebody hit the drums and all arranged by itself. But imagine if we do that one at a time with the sand. That's a lot of work. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you. Carol.
Hello, it's nice to be here with you, Sarah. Thank you for sharing. What was coming to me when you were talking was like, it's dropping of the ego and it's getting into the divine. And if we all did that, we would have instant beautification.
Yes, it's very easy to say the divine. The divine consists of a lot of different energies. So we'd actually, yes, we would have an instant expansion of our consciousness. But actually, the divine energies are full of stories, just like we are. It's just happening in a different way. So we would have all kinds of new levels of drama, I suspect, but they would not be at the level we're at now.
Okay, when I think of divine, I think of it as pure consciousness. Maybe I used the wrong word. Pure consciousness, pure essence is a beautiful word to use. And I've been using that a lot in my yoga classes. I've been getting them into a relaxed state. And I said, come into your essence.
Yeah, yeah.
And
well, that's just very relevant, I think. Yeah.
And so when you said that word, it was just like, yeah, that just came to me. It's just so, like the word you used of liberating.
Yeah, it is. I guess I'm a bit of a realist, Carol. For me, kind of pure essence is, or something like that, the way that people experience that is dynamic and very alive. And the only reason I pick it up is because sometimes I feel that people experience this kind of pressure that there's this pure state that I'm supposed to be in, and if I'm not in that state, there's something wrong. And to me, there's a deep hurt that happens to people, and confusion, and I've experienced it a lot myself. So it's one of those things that I'm a little bit kind of picky about, because I've seen the pressure that people put themselves under to try to be pure, and what it leads to is a state of deeply divided disconnection and pain. So the essence for me has this very dynamic, alive quality where you have yin and yang, you have dark and light, and warm and cool, and things like that. And sometimes the dark is overcoming the light, and sometimes the light is overcoming the dark. All of that continues at more expanded levels of consciousness. So it's really important for us to realize that our essence is right here. It's not some beautified, perfect version of yourself. It's who you are. So you're absolutely right. It's that dropping of the ego. It's who you are. That person is already here. Sometimes we can't really feel that, and it includes all the messy things and the clunky relationships. That's all included within that divine essence. So that's the piece that I want. I think that's what you mean as well. I don't want people to feel this pressure that they've somehow got to purify themselves in a way that becomes impossible and self-defeating, which I'm sure you don't want either. I've seen too much of it to let that one lie. So thank you. Yes, it is. It's like a freeing. You don't need to get rid of ego or something, because ego is some old energy. It's just a part of our being, but it's a freeing of yourself, like Ariana was talking about as well, to be who you are with your very individual, unique being that has all kinds of experiences, very mixed bag of experiences, as we all have. But there is a freedom in that when you're not pretending that you should be something else to meet somebody else's expectations, or when you're not defending who you are because you feel you should be somebody else to meet somebody else's expectations. But it's just like, this is me. And then there we are in the essence, and it's right here anyway. It's beautiful. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Sarah.
And let's go, last one, we'll go to Nina.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm not sure if there's time on this to answer this one, but I will ask it. You made reference to the multidimensional energies that might be assisting us with this. Could you maybe say a little bit more about that?
Yes, and actually, if you really want to experience more, on my YouTube channel, I made a live recording. It's not the most amazing sound because it was being live streamed I was speaking, and Gary Malkin, my friend, who's an incredible composer, was improvising music at the same time. And I did it on about the 7th. There's a collection on my YouTube channel that says it's called 7 Days of Rest. And the 6th of those recordings is about the multidimensional, I can't remember the name of it, but it's something about the multidimensional energies of life. And people will experience this in different ways, but to my knowing, we see ourselves and our physical reality, but we are interwoven with an uncountable number of dimensions of life that all contain their own life forms. Some people now are a little bit more open to this kind of thing, and they know that, for example, there are angelic life forms or angelic realms, and people now quite commonly talk about having guides or having a team, an intangible team. We connect with our higher selves. So we have these notions of different kinds of energy, but of course, the different kinds of energy are so many and so varied that my sense is we're just scratching the surface of this exploration. But what I know is, at least at an individual human level, each one of us is so profoundly supported, directly supported by certain elements of those multidimensional energies, that they literally are engaged in our life. And when we have a wish, like Ariana talked about, wishing for something, or when we want something, or when we say something, or when we think or feel something, there are energies at many different levels. Not all energies, everything's affected by us, but some seem to be directly engaged with us in a way that feels remarkably personal. And if I would see into the essence of that, I'm sure what I would find would be different from how I experience it just as in my very ordinary human way. But it feels like they're there to help. And when I ask for something, it's not me who delivers it. I see this orchestration of action and activities go on that enables good things to happen to me. And we are becoming better and better at connecting with those kinds of energies. That's something I teach people in all of my courses now, because it's becoming so significant to be able to get to know some of the deeper, more hidden systems of life that enable us as human beings to operate in a better way, especially at the moment when we have really run the course of our current way of operating, and it's so clearly not working well. So it's time to call in a lot more of that help. I really feel that's the beginning of an exploration that is so dynamic and will be so transformational for the human species as we begin to open up to that, and will create a whole new level, Carol. I can already see this, a whole new level of ego. And, well, I've got this, my guides, I've been in this, like people saying, oh, my guide's saying this and my guide's saying that. And everybody's guides, like, they're really fighting with each other almost. maybe a lot of human interpretations. There's some interesting new ecosystems coming through, which we will have to navigate. That's the nature of life. So yes, the recording that I made, Nina, is a recording that kind of takes you into the experience of the multidimensionality of life. And I remember when I made it, it was a very beautiful experience. It's probably 30 minutes long. It's just a deep activation of that multidimensionality in your own experience. From wherever you are, you may already be very experienced in that. It was beautiful. If you can just handle the slight, sometimes the music fades when it shouldn't fade because Zoom kind of was doing its sound adjustments at the same time. Does that give you something, Nina, or is there something else there?
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vaughan. Oh yeah, Touching the Intangible, an invitation to our multidimensional world. Catalina's put the link in there. And I see one more hand up. Fred.
You can hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
So two things arose for me strongly, during your sharing and this whole meeting. One is, it was in response to what you were talking about, pure consciousness and the cautions about what that might mean to different minds. And it's always been important to me, and I've been always directed to become aware of the slice of humanity, the part of us that has a diametrically opposed purpose, at least on the surface, to our purposes here, of unification, of justice, of love, in action, etc. They have a diametrically opposed purpose for whatever reason, and that's, of course, a very long discussion. But I always believe that it's very important to understand what, I was going to say, your enemy has in mind, and because that's the way they see us. And if I don't understand what they're about, even deeper than they may understand what they're about, then I'm less prepared to include them in a way and to stand for what I stand for in the face of the challenge that we're all in the midst of. So that's one point. And I could, of course, say a lot more, but I won't at this point. The second thing I want to share is that in my work and development and growth and all of that, what I've seen that's at the essence, perhaps the entirety of the human experience, is being heard, is hearing, is a true listening, but with an accuracy and a completion. And in this COVID era, we've even had the word herd immunity. and also in the word earth, if you take in the Bible, it said the last shall be first and the meek shall inherit. If in the word earth, you take the last letter and put it first, what do you have?
Heart, yeah.
You have heart. And within the essence of the word heart is to hear and ear. So it's all about hearing and being heard. And what I found in my personal work in the science that was given to me many years ago, and that I've used and taught since, it's about the understanding of the universal laws that guide our ability to hear each other in such a way that the individuality disappears into the divinity of each of us in a moment. So when one is completely heard by the other, there's a moment of no-thingness, a moment of oneness. And just to end it up, I'll say another kind of a word, things that come to me are kind of the essence of truth can be in a single word, like the word immunity is I am unity. And we can see how that word immunity has been so present for us collectively for the last 2 years. And that the COVID situation has been the first time in human history that we've all had our consciousness on the same thing at the same time for a sustained period. That's the very first time. It's a unity that has occurred, you know, in that experience of COVID and the fear of it and the all of that. So anyway, so those are, I just want to talk about the word that hearing is so important, and also knowing the fullness of the situation in terms of that part of humanity that is really diametrically opposed to what we stand for. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. So yes, and my sense is that what I've been speaking about is the kind of part of the evolution of our abilities to do that. Because when you see clearly, you can't pretend that that opposing part isn't there. You simply see for what it is. And that deep listening that's a universal, if you like, I think that what I'm talking about is a kind of evolution, evolving ability to actually do that. This, like, seeing the essence connects very much with what you're talking about, this hearing and being heard. And so perhaps we're going to evolve our capacity for that this year as a species, which would be, well, for sure that will happen. I don't have any.
And I'm available. And I'm available if anyone is attracted to the science that was given to me. It's called loving communication, and that's what I teach and share. And it's very precise. It's very simple, and it works miraculously, very, very quickly.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me and for being interested in this. I feel like if a whole lot of us are very curious about this, that alone starts the activation and the strengthening of this energy so that we don't go into denial of it, which is a very uncomfortable place. And we actually come into the experience of it, which is very beautiful and very evolutionary. So thank you very much. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. Okay, bye then.